Hey everyone, it's Nathan Orenstein with The No Show, here to talk about Tenet. Tenet is written and directed by Christopher Nolan and stars John David Washington, Robert Pattinson, Elizabeth Debicki, and Kenneth Branagh. Armed with only one word, Tenet, in fighting for the survival of the entire world, the protagonist journeys through a twilight world of international espionage on a mission that will unfold in something beyond real time. The reason I just had to read from my script is because that was a quote taken directly from IMDb. And the reason I had to take a quote directly from IMDb is because I have no idea how I could have possibly summarized this movie in a single sentence or two. Here's the best I could come up with. It's like if you take the very suave spy stuff from James Bond and mix that with the high stakes action set pieces of Mission Impossible, and you inject that formula into a movie about time and time manipulation, then I guess you have Tenet. I don't know, man. Christopher Nolan's obsession with the concept of time is nothing new. Memento saw him create a story that basically moved backwards as the main character suffered from short-term memory loss and kinda had to relive his past events in reverse order. Inception, of course, he deals with different dream worlds, and with each layer, time moves on an increasingly faster or slower scale. Even Interstellar dealt with space travel and how that affects how time moves. The thing with Tenet is that this is easily his most ambitious film to date, as time moves in reverse. It's not time travel. Time is literally moving backwards for certain people and objects. And as you can imagine, this allows for some pretty insane action moments as well as a very confusing narrative. Christopher Nolan has never been the type of filmmaker to prioritize storytelling over spectacle, and Tenet doesn't change that tradition at all. That's not to say there's not a story, though. There is actually a lot of dialogue and exposition. Honestly, probably more than I expected and would have enjoyed. But my God, is it confusing. I don't think it's messy necessarily. It is just a lot. Like, so much. Before the title card even came on screen, I was pretty confused. And that's like maybe 5 to 10 minutes. And I heard this was a pretty common problem going into this film, so I tried extra hard to pay attention, but nope, Tenet lost me. It doesn't help that characters speak very quickly in this film, and the audio mixing is muddled to the point where I'd be hard-pressed to find a conversation that I could fully understand start to finish. I don't normally address things like audio because it normally doesn't warrant addressing. It's just a part of the film. But with Tenet, it's so hard to understand some of this dialogue, and it just makes an already very confusing movie that much harder to understand. At first, I found all of this to be extremely frustrating, but my biggest piece of advice going into this movie is don't expect to understand the story in its entirety, and don't expect to understand all the dialogue. Once you kind of abandon that expectation, I promise you will enjoy this movie a lot more. That's really when I started having a lot of fun with this movie, even if I couldn't really tell you anything about the plot besides the most major plot points. Obviously, this does not excuse the screenplay's shortcomings, and it definitely doesn't excuse the poor audio either. I'm just saying that's how I would recommend watching this movie if you want to get the most out of it. Tenet is at its most enjoyable when it just shuts up and lets the action speak for itself. Christopher Nolan really uses this concept of things moving in reverse time to its absolute maximum potential, and honestly, some of the action scenes here are some of the best he's ever created. I couldn't even begin to tell you how he filmed, like, any of these action scenes, but I can say for certain that they work seamlessly and they are entertaining as all hell. Hoyt van Hoytema returns as the cinematographer here, working with Christopher Nolan once again, and Tenet looks just as great as any film he's done in the past, with the action scenes being especially well shot. Interestingly enough, Hans Zimmer does not return to do the score here, but Ludwig Göransson's score fits perfectly in every single scene, and it elevates, honestly, every scene it's in. If you came into Tenet only really caring about the spectacle of it all, not so much about the story or the characters or any of that, I certainly don't think you're going to be disappointed with this. The one note I will add is that there isn't as much action as you would expect from a film like this, especially at 2.5 hours in runtime, but the action you do get is incredible. The last thing I want to talk about is the acting, and I really don't have too much to say on this subject. John David Washington makes his second major appearance here as the lead, and I thought he was okay. I wasn't head over heels for his performance in BlacKkKlansman, and his performance here in Tenet didn't really sway me in either direction. Robert Pattinson is also fine here, but he suffers the most from the poor audio mixing. Pattinson's always been kind of a mumbly sort of guy, if that makes any sense, and a lot of what he says in this movie just, I didn't understand it. Elizabeth Debicki is, once again, just kind of okay, and I honestly feel kind of bad because her character throughout the film is just kind of used as a punching bag. Finally is Kenneth Branagh, who plays your stereotypical Russian supervillain, and he sucks. He is so bad in this movie, which is especially weird coming from someone as legendary as Kenneth Branagh. But it honestly got to the point where every time his character was on screen, I was just instinctively annoyed. He does that thing that villains in movies like to do where they just, everything they say is so dark and brooding, and they talk so slow and serious like this. I don't know, maybe you guys will like it more than me, but I could not stand him in this film. None of these actors' characters are really fleshed out in any capacity either, and I could not tell you anything about any of them, to be honest, and the performances really don't help with memorability either. To conclude, Tenet is a movie. It's a big movie about big things, much of which I could not describe to you if I tried my absolute hardest, and sadly, I don't think the fault is on me this time. If you're looking for massive action set pieces that rank as some of Christopher Nolan's best of all time, then this isn't going to disappoint. But at the end of the day, Tenet is an okay movie coming from one of the best mainstream directors of the past 20 years. I did still have a good time with it though, and weirdly, I'm not super disappointed. But as it stands, I'm going to be giving Tenet a 6 out of 10. If you enjoyed the review, then feel free to like and subscribe if you're new. And I'd love to hear your thoughts down in the comments below about Tenet if you've made your long-awaited return to the movie theaters. I've been Nathan Orenstein with The No Show. Thanks for watching.